The flagship screamed through space, engines dead but momentum carrying it forward like a thrown stone. Admiral Korath stood alone on his bridge, his crew having fled to escape pods. He did not run. He would see this through to the end. Taesun could feel every second passing like a heartbeat. The collision would happen in less than 30 seconds. The silence of gods was vast and powerful, but it could not simply move out of the way, not quickly enough. Not with the expedition ship still sheltering behind its shields. The Vareth weapons could vaporize that ship in an instant, the warden said. There would be nothing left but dust. And Korath? Taesun asked. He would die. Taesun closed his eyes. He could see the admiral through the ship's sensors, an old reptile, alone on a dark bridge, waiting for death. Korath had tried to steal, to conquer, to kill. He deserved no mercy. But that was not the point. There are still crew members on that ship, Sora said, her voice tight. Not everyone made it to the escape pods. Taesun nodded. She was right. Even now, he could sense life signs deep within the flagship engineers, technicians, people who had just been following orders. People who did not deserve to die for their admiral's pride. Warden, the precision beams. Can they cut through the flagship's hull without destroying it completely? In theory. But the timing would have to be perfect. One mistake, and the ship explodes. Then do not make a mistake. The silence of gods responded to his will. Cutting beams fired with surgical precision, slicing through the flagship's outer hull in a perfect pattern. The ship began to break apart, not explosively, but carefully. Sections separated and tumbled away, emergency bulkheads sealing to protect the crew inside. Korath felt his bridge shake violently. He looked up in disbelief as the ceiling tore away, revealing the stars above. Emergency shields activated, keeping him alive in the sudden vacuum. But his weapon was gone, cut into pieces like fruit. The largest section, containing the self-destruct mechanism, continued forward. But without engines, without guidance, it began to spin. Taesun reached out with the ship's tractor beams and pushed it gently aside. The section tumbled past the silence of gods, missing by less than a kilometer, and vanished into the asteroid field. A moment later, it exploded. The self-destruct activated, but there was nothing left in it. Just empty space and old rocks. The battle was over. In the control room, Taesun slumped in his chair. He felt like he had run 1,000 kilometers. Every part of him was exhausted, body, mind, and something deeper. Something he could not name. Sora was beside him immediately. You did it. You saved everyone. Almost everyone. He could feel the casualties from the battle Sithic soldiers who had died in the initial exchange. Expedition crew who had been too close to the explosions. Not many, but each one weighed on him. You cannot save everyone, she said gently. But you saved more than anyone thought possible. Outside, the Sithic survivors were being collected. Their ships, damaged and confused, offered no more resistance. The psychic broadcast had broken something in them, or perhaps it had fixed something. Many of the soldiers were crying openly, overwhelmed by memories of a war they had not fought but now understood. Admiral Korath was rescued from the wreckage of his bridge. He did not speak. He did not fight. He simply stared at the silence of gods as his captors led him away, trying to understand how he had lost everything to creatures he had dismissed as primitive. On the expedition command vessel, Director Velonis called an emergency meeting. He looked different than before, smaller somehow, though his body had not changed. The broadcast had humbled him in ways he was still processing. The Galactic Council has been informed, he announced to the assembled leaders. They are concerned. The silence of gods is awake. This changes everything. Ji Yeon stepped forward. Changes it how? The council wants to know who controls the ship. Who decides when it is used? Who owns the most powerful weapon in the galaxy? The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it. Humanity controls it, Ji-Yeon said calmly. You, Tae-sun, and the humans aboard are the only ones who can interface with its systems. The ship chose us. We did not choose it. Valonus clicked his mandibles nervously. That is precisely what concerns them. Then let me speak to the council. Let me explain. The negotiations took 3 days. Ji-Yeon argued, debated, and bargained with representatives from 100 different species. Everyone wanted something. Some wanted the ship destroyed. Some wanted it studied. Some wanted it given to the council as a neutral peacekeeping force. In the end, they reached a compromise. The Silence of Gods would remain with its human crew. It would not be owned by any government or empire. Instead, it would serve as an independent protector, a guardian that answered to no one except its own conscience. You are asking humanity to be responsible for the most dangerous weapon in existence, one of the council members said. You have only been part of galactic society for 30 years. Why should we trust you? Ji-Yeon smiled. Because we have already proven ourselves. When Admiral Korath attacked, Tae-sun could have destroyed his entire fleet. He chose not to. He chose mercy over power. That is what humanity brings to the galaxy. Not strength, but wisdom. Not destruction, but choice. The council was not entirely convinced, but they accepted the arrangement. There would be oversight, observation, limitations. But the ship would remain with its human crew. On the Silence of Gods, Tae-sun stood before the Warden's central interface. The ancient AI had been quiet since the battle, processing everything that had happened. The Vareth would not have done what you did, the Warden said finally. They believed that enemies must be destroyed completely. That mercy was an invitation for revenge. And they were wrong, Tae-sun replied. Destroying your enemies does not end conflict. It just creates new enemies. Korath wanted to conquer. If I had killed him, his people would have wanted revenge. The cycle would never end. But he lives. Will he not seek revenge anyway? Maybe, but maybe not. He saw his crew turn against him. He saw his soldiers weeping over memories of war. That changes a person. Even someone like him. The Warden was silent for a long moment. You are different from the Vareth. You see things they could not see. We learned from our own mistakes, Tae-sun said. Humanity has had many wars. We have committed many horrors. But we kept trying to be better. We did not always succeed. But we never stopped trying. Sora joined him at the interface, along with Dong-ha and a small crew of humans who had volunteered to serve aboard the ancient ship. They were few in number, but they were determined. The Council has approved our mission, Sora reported. We are officially peacekeepers, independent, neutral. That is a lot of responsibility, Dong-ha said. What if we make mistakes? Tae-sun looked at his small crew, his family now. We will make mistakes. That is what it means to be human. But we will learn from them. And we will keep trying. The Warden spoke one final time, its voice softer than before. 50,000 years ago, I asked the Vareth if they were worthy of the power they held. They said yes, without hesitation. I now ask you the same question. Are you worthy? Tae-sun looked out the window at the galaxy beyond billions of stars, countless civilizations, infinite possibilities. He thought about the weight of the ship around him, the lives that depended on his choices, the future that stretched out like an endless road. No, he said honestly, we are not worthy. Not yet, maybe not ever. But we will try to be. Every day, we will try. The Warden considered this answer. The Vareth claimed perfection and fell. You admit imperfection and strive forward. Perhaps that is the difference that matters. The lights of the control room seemed to grow warmer. The ship hummed with something that might have been approval. Then go, Yutei-san. Go, Kang Sora. Go, humans of Earth. The galaxy awaits. Show them what the Silent Ones can become. The Silence of Gods turned away from the graveyard of Titans and headed toward the stars. It had been silent for 50,000 years. Now, it had a voice again, and the galaxy would never be the same. The psychic broadcast hit like a wave crashing against the shore. Every telepathic being within range felt it, the memories of the Varith. Raw and unfiltered dot, they felt the pride of building the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. They felt the fear when enemies gathered at their borders. They felt the moment when the first weapon fired, and a planet turned to ash dot, and they felt the emptiness afterward. The terrible silence of a world that no longer existed. The knowledge that nothing they had won was worth what they had lost. On the Scythic flagship, soldiers collapsed at their stations. Some of them wept. Some of them screamed. The ancient memories flooded their minds, showing them the truth that conquerors never wanted to see, that victory built on death was no victory at all. Admiral Korath felt nothing. He stood on his command deck, watching his crew fall apart around him. His scales were covered in a special alloy that blocked telepathic frequencies. He had worn it for decades, ever since he learned that enemies could use thoughts as weapons. The broadcast washed over him and left him untouched. "Get up," he snarled at his officers. "Get up and fight." But they could not. The visions were too strong. They saw themselves in the Varith-proud warriors who became monsters. And they could not unsee it. On the expedition command vessel, Director Velonis was on his knees, his compound eyes streaming with tears he had not known he could produce. The memories had hit him hard. He had always believed in progress, in the pursuit of knowledge at any cost. Now he saw what that cost could truly be. Jian stood over him, her face pale but determined. She had felt the broadcast too, but it affected her differently. Humans processed the Varith memories through translation, filtered and distant. She understood the message without drowning in it. "Director," she said gently, "we need to keep moving. The battle is not over." Velonis looked up at her with something new in his eyes. Respect. "How?" he asked. "How can your species bear such things?" "We have our own memories of war," Jian said quietly. "We have already learned these lessons. We learned them the hard way." Inside the silence of gods, Tai-san watched the chaos unfold through 1,000 sensors. He could feel the pain radiating from the ships around him, the Scythic crews overwhelmed by guilt, the expedition members struggling to process what they had seen. Part of him wanted to stop it, to pull back the broadcast and let them recover. But another part of him, the part connected to the warden, knew this was necessary. "The truth is painful," the warden said, "but lies are worse." The Varith hid from the truth for too long. By the time they faced it, they had already destroyed everything they loved. Sora was at the navigation console, her hands flying over controls that seemed to respond to her thoughts. She had not fully bonded with the ship like Tai-san, but it accepted her presence. It trusted her. "The Scythic fleet is breaking apart," she reported. "Most of their ships have stopped firing, but the flagship is still coming." Tai-san focused his attention on Korath's vessel. He could see the admiral on the bridge, immune to the broadcast, forcing his crew back to their stations. Some of them obeyed. Most did not. "He is wearing psychic shielding," Tai-san said. "The broadcast cannot reach him. Then we need to stop him another way." On the expedition command vessel, Bei Dong-ha was coordinating the evacuation of non-essential personnel. The young security officer had never expected to face a real battle. He had signed up for the expedition to see ancient ruins, not to fight a war. But here he was. And his people needed him. All civilian shuttles, head for the far side of the asteroid field, he ordered. The wreckage will provide cover. Military personnel stand ready to assist. Lieutenant Yora, a young Methrony who had always been curious about humans, approached him. Unlike Velonis, she had treated the human team members with respect from the beginning. Officer Bay, she said, I want to help. My people have treated yours badly. I want to make it right. Dongha looked at her for a moment, then nodded. Can you fly a shuttle? Yes, then follow me. We are going to buy the silence of God sometime. They ran toward the hangar, past crew members still recovering from the broadcast. Outside, Admiral Korath's flagship was pushing through the chaos, its weapons charging for a final attack. On the flagship's bridge, Korath watched the ancient warship with hungry eyes. The broadcast had been impressive, a clever trick. But tricks did not win wars. Power won wars. And he would have that power no matter the cost. All weapons, target the human ship, he commanded. Maximum firepower. His officers hesitated. Many of them were still shaking from the visions they had seen. But they were soldiers. They followed orders. The flagship's weapons fired. Taysun felt the attack coming. Instinct took over instinct that was partly his own and partly the ship's. The silence of gods twisted in space, dodging blasts that would have destroyed a normal vessel. Its shields absorbed what could not be avoided, turning deadly energy into harmless light. The shields are holding, Sora said, but he is not stopping. What do we do? Taysun could feel the ship's weapons waiting. So much power, just beneath the surface. One command, and Korath's flagship would cease to exist. One thought, and the threat would be over. But then what? The Sithic would send more ships. There would be revenge, retaliation, war. And Taysun would become exactly what the Varith had become, a conqueror hiding behind the excuse of self-defense. No, he said. There has to be another way. The warden spoke, its voice curious. The Varith would have destroyed him without hesitation. They believed that mercy was weakness. And where did that belief lead them? Taysun closed his eyes, thinking. Show me the ship's systems. All of them. Information flooded his mind. Weapons, shields, engines, sensors, and something else. Precision tools designed for construction, not destruction. The Varith had built things as well as destroyed them. Those cutting beams, he said. They were used to shape asteroids, to build stations. How accurate are they? Accurate enough to carve names in the mountains from orbit. Taysun smiled. Then we do not need to destroy the flagship. We just need to stop it. Sora understood immediately. Target the engines. Disable, not destroy. Exactly. The silence of gods moved like nothing the galaxy had seen in 50,000 years. It flowed through the asteroid field, dodging weapons' fire with impossible grace. Then, with surgical precision, it fired. The cutting beams hit Korath's flagship exactly where Taysun wanted them. Engines exploded. Power systems failed. The massive ship went dark and began to drift. Alive, but helpless. On the bridge, Korath screamed with rage. But there was nothing he could do. His ship was crippled, his fleet scattered and confused. He had lost not to superior firepower, but to something he could not understand. Mercy. The Sithic crews began to surrender, their minds still haunted by the Varith's memories. Some of them were angry. Some of them were grateful. All of them were changed. In the control room, Taysun sat back in his chair, exhausted. The ship hummed around him, warm and alive. You chose a different path, the warden said. The Varith would not have done that. The Varith did not have to live with their choices, Taysun replied. We do, but the victory was not complete. On the drifting flagship, Admiral Korath was making one final decision. If he could not have the silence of gods, no one would. He activated the self-destruct. Then he aimed his dying ship directly at the ancient warship. "All hands, abandon ship," he announced. "But the flagship stays on course. If I am to die, I will take that weapon with me." Sora saw the collision course immediately. "Tay-san, he's going to ram us." They had seconds stacked. Not enough time to move the massive ancient ship. Not enough time to destroy the flagship completely. Just enough time to make one more impossible choice. The voice echoed through the empty corridors like thunder from a distant storm. Tay-san froze where he stood, his heart beating fast in his chest. The lights around him continued to glow brighter, and he could feel a soft vibration beneath his feet. The ship was alive. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaking only a little. There was a pause. When the voice spoke again, it was slower, as if choosing its words carefully. "I am the Warden. I protect this vessel. I have protected it for 50,000 years, waiting for one who could hear me without dying." Tay-san touched the wall beside him. It was warm, like the skin of a living creature. "The others who came here," he said. "You killed them. They could not survive my presence. Their minds were open, and I am too loud. But you are different. You are silent, like the ones who made me." Outside, Sora was watching through the shuttle sensors. She could see Tay-san moving through the ship, his life sign steady and strong. Relief washed over her, but she did not relax. The ship had accepted him, but that did not mean it was safe. Her radio crackled with angry voices. Director Velonis was demanding that Tay-san return immediately. Scholar Prin was asking questions about what he could see inside. She ignored them all and focused on the man walking deeper into the darkness. Tay-san followed the lights. They led him through corridors wider than roads, past chambers filled with machines he could not understand. Everything was clean and perfect, as if time had stopped the moment the ship went silent. There was no dust, no decay. The silence of gods had preserved itself while empires rose and fell outside. The Warden spoke again, its voice coming from everywhere at once. "You are a new species. I do not recognize your shape or your thoughts. Where do you come from?" "A planet called Earth," Tay-san said. "My people are called humans. We only started traveling between stars a few hundred years ago." "Young," the Warden said. "Very young. Yet you survived where ancient races could not. This is interesting." The lights led Tay-san to a massive door. It opened without him touching it, revealing a chamber so large he could not see the ceiling. In the center was a chair made of black metal, surrounded by floating screens that showed images of space, of planets, of things he did not recognize. "This is the control nexus," the Warden said. "From here, my creators commanded fleets. From here, they ended wars. No one has sat in that chair since the last of the Vareth died." "The Vareth," Tay-san repeated. "That was the name of your creators." "Yes, they were like you silent ones, minds closed to the noise of the universe. They believed that telepathy was a weakness. Other species could read thoughts, but they could also be controlled through thoughts. The Vareth wanted to be free from such manipulation, so they removed that part of themselves." Tay-san walked closer to the chair. The screens followed his movement, adjusting their angles to face him. "Why did they die?" he asked. The Warden was quiet for a long moment. "War," it finally said. "The greatest war this galaxy has ever known. The Vareth were powerful, but their enemies were many. In the end, my creators chose to destroy themselves rather than let their weapons fall into the wrong hands. They believed that someday another silent species would find us. They hoped that species would be wiser than they were." Outside the ship, Sora saw something strange on her sensors. The shuttle shook slightly, and warning lights began to flash. "Tay-san," she said into her radio. Something is happening. The ship is powering up systems I have never seen before. His voice came back, calm but alert. The warden is showing me the control room. I think it wants me to stay. Stay? What do you mean? Before he could answer, Director Valonis broke into the channel. His voice was sharp with fear and anger. Human, exit that vessel immediately. This is a direct order from the Expedition Command. Tae-san looked at the chair in front of him. He could feel the ship waiting, patient and eternal. Director, I think the ship has chosen me. It says humans are compatible with its systems because we are not telepathic. It has been waiting for a species like us. Impossible. Valonis shouted. You are primitives. That ship is the most advanced weapon ever created. It cannot want you. And yet here I am, Tae-san said quietly. Alive when everyone else died. The warden spoke again, its voice filling the chamber. He speaks truth. I have scanned your companion outside. She is also silent. Your species is compatible. You can command this vessel if you choose. Tae-san felt the weight of those words. Command this vessel. The ship that had destroyed fleets. The ship that had ended civilizations. It was offering itself to him like a sword waiting for a hand. What happens if I refuse? He asked. Then I will sleep again. I will wait another 50,000 years, or forever. It does not matter to me. Time has no meaning when you are alone. Sora's voice came through his radio, urgent and worried. Tae-san, the ship is sealing its airlocks. I cannot get inside anymore. What is happening? He turned toward the entrance, but the door had closed behind him. The warden was not threatening him. He did not feel any danger. But it was clear that the ship did not want him to leave. Not yet. The warden is offering me a choice, he said. It wants me to bond with the ship. To become its pilot. Bond? What does that mean? The warden answered for him, its voice broadcasting to Sora's radio as well. It means he will feel what I feel, see what I see. The ship will become part of him, and he will become part of the ship. It is not slavery. It is partnership. The Varith designed it this way because they did not trust machines to act alone. Every decision requires a living mind. Sora's breath was fast and scared. Tae-san, you cannot do this. We do not know what it will do to you. I know. He stood before the chair, looking at the screens that showed the galaxy in all its vastness. But think about what this means. Humans have been treated like children since we joined the galactic community. Everyone thinks we are weak and primitive. But this ship, the most powerful weapon in history, it chose us. It chose us because we are different. Not despite our limitations, but because of them. That is a very big risk for pride. It is not about pride. He touched the arm of the chair. It is about proving that we belong here, that we have something to offer. The warden waited. Sora waited. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Tae-san sat down in the chair. The moment he touched the seat, light exploded through his mind. He saw stars being born and dying. He saw battles that shook planets and wars that burned across centuries. He saw the Varith tall, quiet beings with sad eyes making their final choice. And he saw himself, small and young and full of hope, sitting in a chair built for giants. The bomb begins, the warden said. Welcome, you Tae-san. Welcome to the silence of gods. Outside, alarms began to scream. The ship was waking up, and nothing would ever be the same. The graveyard of Titans stretched across 1,000,000 kilometers of empty space. Broken ships floated among the asteroids like the bones of dead giants. Some were small, no bigger than houses. Others were massive, their hulls torn open by weapons that no longer existed. All of them had been silent for 50,000 years. Yu Tae-san pressed his face against the observation window and stared at the wreckage. He had seen pictures of this place in school, but pictures could not capture the feeling of being here. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. They belonged to a civilization that had died before his species had learned to make fire. "Human, stop wasting time." Taesun turned around. Director Velonis stood behind him, all four arms crossed over his chest. The Methrony was tall and thin, with a hard shell covering his body like armor. His compound eyes showed no warmth. "I was just looking," Taesun said. "You are here to work, not to look. Go help with the cargo." Velonis clicked his mandibles in what might have been disgust. "I do not know why the Council insisted on including your kind in this expedition. Humans have been part of galactic society for only 30 years. You know nothing." Taesun wanted to argue, but he kept his mouth shut. He was an engineer, one of the best on Earth, but out here, among species that had traveled between stars for thousands of years, he was treated like a child. He found Kan Sora in the cargo bay, checking equipment lists on her tablet. She was a pilot, assigned to the expedition just like him. She looked up when he entered. "Velonis again?" she asked. "How did you know? You have that look on your face." She smiled. "The one that says you want to punch something." "I would never punch anything," Taesun said. "I am a professional." "Sure you are." Sora handed him a box of scanning tools. "Come on. They found something interesting, and they need us to carry their equipment. Because that is what humans are good for, apparently." They followed the other workers to the main hangar. The expedition had brought 6 ships, all filled with scientists and scholars from a dozen different species. Everyone wanted to study the graveyard of Titans. The ancient civilization that had fought and died here was still a mystery. Their technology was beyond anything the modern galaxy could produce. Scholar Prin was waiting for them in the hangar. The old Allori was shorter than Taesun, with wet skin that glistened under the lights. His large eyes were kind, unlike Velonis. "Ah, the humans," Prin said. Good. Come, look at this." He led them to a holographic display. The image showed a ship floating alone, away from the main wreckage field. It was black, shaped like a blade, and completely intact. "The silence of gods," Prin said, his voice filled with wonder. "We have searched for this ship for centuries. It was the most powerful warship of the ancient war. Records say it destroyed entire fleets by itself. And then, when the war ended, it went silent. No one knows why." Taesun studied the image. The ship was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a weapon made into art. "Why has no one claimed it?" he asked. "If it is so powerful, someone must have tried." Prin's expression grew dark. "Many have tried. All have died. Anyone who enters that ship dies instantly. Neural shutdown. Their brains simply stop working, with no warning and no explanation. It has happened to every species that has attempted to board. The ship kills all who approach." Sora frowned. "Then why are we here?" "Because we must try again," Velonis said, entering the hangar. "The Council believes new scanning technology might reveal the secret. If we can understand how the ship's defenses work, we can disable them. The knowledge inside that vessel could advance our civilization by thousands of years." The next 3 days were filled with work. Teams scanned the ship from every angle. They sent robots inside, but the robots stopped working the moment they crossed the hull. They tried hacking into the ship's systems, but the systems did not respond. On the 4th day, they sent a living team. Taesun was running diagnostics on the scanning equipment when the scream started. He looked up and saw chaos on the monitor screens. The team inside the ship, 3 Methrony scientists, had collapsed. Their life signs went flat in less than 2 seconds. "Pull them out," Velonis shouted. But it was too late. The scientists were dead before anyone could reach them. That night, the expedition held a memorial. Tayson stood in the back, watching the alien rituals he did not understand. Sora stood beside him, her face grim. "This is wrong," she whispered. "They keep sending people to die. For what? Old technology?" "Knowledge," Tayson said. "That is what they want. Knowledge is power." But something bothered him. He had watched the scanning data when the team died. The ship's defense system had sent out a pulse, a specific frequency that targeted the brain. But the frequency was strange. It matched patterns he had seen before in research papers about telepathy. Most alien species had some form of telepathy. Some were strong, some were weak, but almost all of them could sense thoughts to some degree. Humans could not. It was one of the things that made them strange to the rest of the galaxy. Tayson pulled up the data again and studied it carefully. The frequency targeted telepathic activity. It overloaded the parts of the brain that processed psychic information. Humans did not have those parts. He found Sora the next morning and showed her his findings. "You think humans are immune?" she asked, her eyes wide. "I think it is possible. The ship's defense system attacks telepaths. We are not telepaths. It might not affect us at all." Sora stared at him. "You want to go in there? Someone has to test the theory." "Tayson, if you are wrong, you will die." He nodded slowly. "I know, but if I am right, we could change everything. We could prove that humans are not useless. We could show them what we are capable of." Sora was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Fine, but I'm coming with you to the airlock. If something goes wrong, I will drag your body back myself." They approached the Silence of Gods in a small shuttle. The ship grew larger and larger in the window until it filled the entire view. Up close, Tayson could see details that the scans had missed. Strange symbols covered the hull. Lights flickered deep inside, like a heartbeat. He stood before the airlock and took a deep breath. Balonus was shouting at him over the radio, ordering him to return. He ignored it. The airlock hissed. The door slid open. Tayson stepped forward. Nothing happened. No pain, no shutdown, no death. The ship accepted him. Inside, lights began to turn on, one by one, as if the vessel was waking from a long sleep. And somewhere deep within the ship, a voice spoke for the first time in 50,000 years. "Welcome, Silent One. I have been waiting." Tayson felt like he was drowning in memories that were not his own. He saw worlds burning. He saw ships tearing each other apart in the cold darkness of space. He saw the Vareth standing on the bridge of this very vessel, watching as their enemies fell before them. And he felt their shame. "We were conquerors," the warden whispered in his mind. "We told ourselves we were protecting the galaxy. We told ourselves that only we could bring order. But we were wrong. We brought only death." The images shifted. He saw the Vareth Council, old and tired, making their final decision. They would destroy themselves. They would hide their weapons. And they would hope that someday someone better would find them. "We programmed the ships to wait," the warden continued. "To test those who came. Most species are telepathic. Most species would use us for conquest. But a silent species, a species like yours, might be different, might be better." Tayson opened his eyes. The control room swam around him, slowly coming into focus. His body felt strange, like it was connected to something vast. When he moved his hand, he felt the ship respond. When he breathed, the lights around him pulsed in the same rhythm. "I can feel everything," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The engines, the shields, the weapons. You are the ship now," the warden said, "and the ship is you. But the bond is not complete. It will take time for your mind to adjust." Outside, chaos had erupted. Director Velonis was shouting orders. Scanners showed the silence of gods powering up systems that had been dead for millennia. Energy readings were off the charts. And then a new signal appeared. Ships, many ships, coming fast. Sora saw them first. Her pilot instincts recognized the formation immediately. "Tay-san, we have a problem." A fleet just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, military configuration. Through the ship's sensors, Tay-san could see them clearly. 15 warships, all bearing the mark of the Scythic Empire. The Reptilian. Scythic were one of the oldest and most aggressive species in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds, and they were always hungry for more. A new voice crackled over the communication channels. It was cold and commanding. "This is Admiral Korath of the Scythic Third Fleet. All vessels in this area are hereby ordered to stand down. The artifact, known as the Silence of Gods, is now property of the Scythic Empire." Director Velonis responded, his voice tight with fear. "Admiral, this is a joint scientific expedition authorized by the Galactic Council. You have no authority here." "I have 15 warships," Korath replied. "That is all the authority I need." On the expedition's command vessel, Wang Jiyan watched the situation unfold with growing dread. She was a diplomat, sent to represent humanity's interests on the expedition. She had expected boring meetings and paperwork. She had not expected this. "Director," she said carefully, "we need to contact the Council. Request emergency assistance." "The nearest Council fleet is 3 days away," Velonis said. His compound eyes were moving frantically. "We will be dead long before they arrive." Ji Yeon looked at the image of the Silence of Gods on the main screen. Somewhere inside that ship was one of her people. A man who had just bonded with the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. "Tay-san," she said into the communication channel. "Can you hear me?" His voice came back, different than before. Deeper, calmer. "I hear you. The Scythic want the ship. They will kill us all to get it. I know. I can see their fleet. I can feel their weapons charging." Ji Yeon took a deep breath. "Can you stop them?" There was a long silence. When Tay-san spoke again, there was something heavy in his words. "The Warden says the ship has weapons that could destroy their entire fleet in seconds. Weapons that could tear planets apart. The Vareth used them to win wars. And then they spent centuries regretting it. So, what do we do?" Before Tay-san could answer, Sora's voice cut in. She was no longer outside the ship. She had found another way in, using an emergency hatch that the Warden had opened for her. "I am inside," she said. "Tay-san, where are you?" He smiled, even though she could not see it. "Control room. Follow the lights." She ran through the corridors, her footsteps echoing in the ancient halls. The ship felt alive around her, warm and welcoming. It recognized her as a silent one, just like Tay-san. She belonged here too. She found him sitting in the chair, his eyes glowing faintly with reflected light from the screens around him. He looked different, stronger, but also tired, like he was carrying a weight too heavy for one person. "The bond," she said. "Is it hurting you?" "Not hurting. Just showing me things. The Vareth were not evil, Sora. They were afraid. They built these weapons because they were afraid of being destroyed. And then they became the thing they feared most. That does not help us now. The Scythic are going to attack." Tay-san closed his eyes. Through the ship's sensors, he could see Admiral Korath's flagship. He could see the weapons powering up, targeting the defenseless expedition vessels. He could see Ji Yeon standing on the command deck, trying to stay calm. "The Warden says there is another option," he said slowly. "Not weapons. Something else." The Vareth recorded a message before they died. A psychic broadcast that shows the truth of what happened. Every telepathic being in range would experience it directly, feel the guilt, the regret, the horror of what war really means. Sora frowned. Would it stop them? It might make them think. It might make them question whether conquest is worth it. Or it might just make them angry. Taysun opened his eyes and looked at her. I do not want to use the weapons, Sora. I felt what the Vareth felt when they used them. The destruction. The silence afterward, when entire civilizations just stopped existing. I cannot be that. I will not. She knelt beside him and took his hand. It was cold, connected to something vast and alien, but still human. Then we tried the message, she said. Together. Outside, Admiral Korath's patience had run out. This is your final warning, his voice boomed. Surrender the artifact, or we will open fire. Thalonis looked at Ji-Yan desperately. We have no choice. We must give them what they want. No. Ji-Yan stood tall. That ship chose humanity. We will not betray that trust. Then you will die with it. The Scythic fleet opened fire. In the control room, Taysun felt the attack coming. His mind reached out, and the silence of gods responded. Shields activated, wrapping around the expedition vessels like a protective hand. The Scythic weapons hit the shields and scattered harmlessly into space. Shields holding, Sora reported, watching the screens in amazement. They cannot hurt us. But Taysun knew this could not last. The shields were strong, but the Scythic were relentless. Eventually, something would break through. It was time to make a choice. Warden, he said, prepare the broadcast. Show them what the Vareth saw. Show them the truth of war. Are you certain? Once they see, they cannot unsee. It may break some of them. Taysun looked at Sora, and she nodded. Do it. Light exploded across the stars, and every mind in range began to scream.